the more lenses you look at the problem with, the more likely you are to resolve the problem effectively. And inclusive for me is seeking that diversity, is inviting the voice of even the people in the team that are maybe shy or timid, but really, really encouraging that mindset of everybody has a voice. And actually, the more diverse the voice, the better we can work together and resolve problems.
Listen, I want to talk to you about the connecting leader model because it's a point of view that is now part and parcel of the DNA of Heidrick and Struggles, leadership development. It's something I know you've been working on passionately. Before I get there, I've always had a strong point of view about why it's now so important for people to connect, reconnect, and stay connected, especially when we've had the experience of the pandemic. Why do people-to-people connections matter so much, Regis? In the work you're doing and the research and the people you're talking to, why is this so important?
Well, as work in organizations is shifting, we all know that technology and AI is being embedded everywhere in organizations. Humans have to become more human within the organizations. Connecting people to people is very critical to elevate the roles that humans can play within organizations. If a colleague does transactional work within an organization, that transactional work will disappear sooner or later. It will be automated. How do we elevate the level of activities and the humanity of our workforce? We ask now our workforce to be more creative, more collaborative, to solve more complex problems. So humans have to become more human. And connections among humans is critical, but connections to ourselves first, connections to the team, connection to the organization, but also connection to the external world, and ultimately connection to the trends that are going on in terms of innovations and AI and technology. Being connected for us is very important. And when we started the research, we started by saying the connected leader.
I remember.
And we shifted that to connecting leader. Being connected is a state. Connecting is actively connecting every day to all the different actors of your own ecosystem.
Yes.
So that's why connecting for us is so important.
Well, there's a fluidity to that, isn't it? Rather than, as you say, a static state. It's a constant state. I'm glad you used the word humanity. Perhaps that's something that we could all do a little bit more of in a world that has gone slightly mad. You talked about research. Research is behind this particular point of view. Help us understand a little bit about what you mean by research.
So, first of all, I joined the Heidrick and Struggles 2 years ago, but well before that, the Heidrick and Struggle has been in the leadership space for many decades. And for the last 10 years, especially, there was quite a bit of research on leadership competencies, leadership performance, correlation between all those elements. But we were looking in the rearview mirror. We were looking behind us and observing what are the leadership characteristics that we observe that were leading to better performance. What we have done in the recent years is we're trying to look forward. So how did we do that? In order to understand the future of leadership, we need to understand what is the future of the enterprise. Once we understand what is the future of the enterprise, then we can better understand what kind of leader is needed for that enterprise to succeed. So how do we come up with the future of the enterprise? So we step back and look at what we have today, and we surveyed organizations on what are the societal forces that affect organizations today that organizations will have to adapt to. We have identified 8 different forces. Environmental concerns is one societal force. AI and technology, of course, is another societal force. The lack of trust in institutions forces organizations to change a little bit of how they are positioned in the marketplace and how they project their brand and values. Consumers now expect organizations to sometimes step in instead of the government, which they don't trust anymore.
Right.
The changing expectations of the workforce.
Yeah.
Exactly. Demographics, but also post-COVID, the work-life balance has become very important in the mind of people post-COVID. The workplace is no longer looking the same as what it was pre-COVID, right? In addition to the generations that are coming in. I mean, my kids are 21 and 25, and they are already team leaders. So Gen Z is taking the leadership ranks within organizations without counting on the gig economy. By 2026, in the US, there would be more contractors and freelancers than full-time employees in the workforce. So the gig economy is here.
It's all shifted.
And is real today.
Okay.
So we have taken all those societal forces and then projected that in the future for the organization. So the future of the organization then becomes a much more open platform for value creation. I talked about the gig economy. More and more, yes, we have a core workforce that is full-time, but we bring in more and more contractors and freelancers to complement the capabilities that we need within the organization. We bring in partners no longer for 20 years or 10 years to help us with our supply, but also on specific projects, specific services, specific products. And those relationships can be just for the lifespan of that product or that service to bring us some capabilities that we don't have. So that open platform with many actors to create value towards a specific mission and purpose that needs to be amplified. So for the future of the enterprise, it's very important that mission and purpose is very, very clear because we have so many actors and it's so open. The boundaries of the enterprise are becoming more and more open. If we don't have that purpose and mission and that focus, it could become chaos. We have so many actors, right? So we all need to really be laser focused on that.
We're seeing, aren't we, Regis, in our work that direction, focus, leadership and culture are three very important pillars for the success, the accelerated success of any organization. And also interesting, I'm hearing from you that when we talk about the connecting leader, it's very much forward focused, not in the rear view mirror. Is that a fair summary just in relation to the direction of travel?
Absolutely. Yeah. So with the connecting leader, we're trying to anticipate the leadership capabilities that will be needed today and tomorrow as enterprises and organizations are evolving.
Okay. Now, there are 5 critical components. So we've got envision the future, deliver today. We've got orchestrate ecosystems as a second one. Then we've got harness the power of others. And then fourthly, act with purpose and courage. But all of those 4, which we'll touch on, are surrounding learning mindset. That seems to be, if this was a wheel, that's the hub of the wheel. So let's start with learning mindset. What do we mean by that in relation to this point of view about the connecting leader, Regis?
Satya Nadella, I think, said it first, it's a world and an age anymore where it's learn it all, not know it all anymore.
Right.
So leaders, the ability of leaders to learn, to experiment is so critical nowadays. The world is changing so fast. You need to, not only individually, but also your organization has to flex and experiment and learn from those experiments and plan those experiments. We don't want to talk about failures anymore. We want to talk about learning as we experiment and growing our maturity. And that applies to ourselves individually. Oh, my leadership style needs to be improved this way. That person is extrovert. I am more introvert. I am a bit shy. How do I approach that? So I push myself out of my comfort zone and I experiment a little bit and see how these new behaviors that I try to apply impact others. So that applies to me as an individual, but that applies also to a team that can experiment together, that can apply to the organization as well. So learning mindset is really front and center of the connecting leader. Absolutely.
Now, when we be leaders from heavily regulated sectors, when we're working with the legal sector, the pharmaceutical sector, the insurance sector, and they very commonly say this is a struggle to try and embrace that fail fast or learn from failure. Failure isn't in many people's vocabularies. I understand why. What's your advice to those people who are working in highly regulated or what they feel quite rigid environments when it comes to you need to have a learning mindset. You need to really learn from failure.
The planned experiments is the key. Planning those experiments. Look at SpaceX. I mean, this is regulated, right? This is a highly regulated industry for the safety of people, both on the ground and astronauts. And look at the acceleration of producing new boosters through planned experiments. So when they were launching some boosters initially, they were meant to fail, but we were learning and capturing data, collecting data as they were failing. So planned experiments is really for me the way to, within a very constrained environment, to still be able to accelerate innovation and learn through experiment that way.
And this is absolutely essential, isn't it? Because I think most CEOs' biggest fear is becoming irrelevant. And so if one is stood still and everybody else is moving forward and learning and innovating, that's when organizations and individuals get left behind. So we've got learning mindset in the middle of the other four components. Let's go to envision the future, deliver today. Now, I know this is something that a lot of leaders struggle with because it's asking them to simultaneously deliver high performance day to day, but also spend enough time exploring perhaps both opportunity and challenge as yet not even identifiable sometime in the future. So tell us how you landed on envision the future, deliver today, and what does that mean to the connecting leader?
So this is, of course, shaping the strategy of the organization is, of course, a strong requirement of leaders. And driving impact, delivering is also something that is very important. Doing both at the same time is the challenge that we are trying to resolve here. How do you prioritize? Interesting data point. I took some notes on purpose. Taking on too much and overcommitting is the most frequent derailers that we have captured through our assessment data of leaders.
Guilty.
Another one, setting too many strategic priorities that overwhelm and confuse is the number 3 most important derailer. So that is definitely something that we need to train people at and really provide the tools for clarity of direction, for clarity of prioritization, so that both can be done at the same time. Too often we hear leaders, yes, but I'm so busy every day. I don't have the time to take some space and distance from the situation and think just that. So that's really where we are trying to go. That capability for us is critical in the future because the world will not stop moving. The world will not stop moving, and you need to be able to anticipate and align your strategy while still delivering the value to every day.
Simplicity is part and parcel of that element as well, isn't it? Just tell us a little bit about how that fits together.
Absolutely. Again, too many priorities, too many directions. If we can simplify the organization, if we can simplify the number of priorities, if we can simplify the organization, it's not only processes, then that becomes much easier to do both at the same time.
Gotcha. Orchestrate ecosystems. So help people understand, what do we mean by that? Because that could mean a multitude of things. Orchestrate ecosystems, Regis.
Yes. So this is an extension of what we just covered. Envision the future, deliver today. Great. You can do that within the organization. But more and more, the world, first, is moving very fast. And second, the problems that we are trying to resolve are becoming more and more complex. We need to have more and more capabilities to be able to resolve those complex problems. And sometimes, and more often, because the problems are becoming more and more complex, we need to reach out outside of the enterprise to bring those capabilities that we don't have so that we can deliver the services and products to our customers. So here we're talking about business ecosystems. Sometimes those are as simple as one partner, one relationship, but sometimes those business ecosystems can be quite complex. And the key there is to make sure that we find a win-win-win among all the actors of that ecosystem for ourselves and for the ecosystem itself. So during COVID, look at Pfizer and biotech and look at the regulators in the countries and the governments supporting that initiative to accelerate the research and then the manufacturing of that vaccine in record time. This is an example of very complex ecosystem that has been created to resolve that very, very complex problem.
So when we talk about orchestrate ecosystems, I think that's, for a lot of people, that's complicated, a little bit like spinning plates on sticks, and you're forever trying to ensure that one of those plates doesn't drop and break. What really is your standout advice to a leader now trying to identify and manage the spinning plates to understand both the internal and the external ecosystems, which are forever changing. Where do they even start, Regis, on this?
Yeah, so that can be overwhelming, right? When you look at it, when you look at the outside world, I mean, that can be absolutely overwhelming. So that's very important that you really understand the problem that we are trying to resolve.
Right.
What problem are you trying to resolve? Is it a new need that customers have expressed and you want to address that need? But to address that need, you can provide 70% of the capabilities to do it. But there are 30% that are not there. Let's take the automotive. Those car manufacturers, the traditional car manufacturers, excellent in terms of all the different mechanical aspects of the car, but they didn't know the battery technology, right? That's a capability that they needed to find somewhere else. And actually, it's not only the battery technology, but also the electronics to be able to manage the power, et cetera, et cetera. So they had 70% of the answer with all the mechanical parts, but they didn't have the battery experience and knowledge and expertise. So that's where they reached out to different players in that space to create an ecosystem that allows them to address the EV market ultimately. This is a big example that can be also replicated at a very much smaller scale when you think about your local markets and your own capabilities. This is a way to accelerate innovation. This is a way to scale faster through partnering. And the mindset to have is 1 + 1 = 3. None of us individually could do it on our own. But if we combine our forces, we can resolve those complex problems.
So it's about leveraging the collective. So Regis, before I go on to the other two, so envision the future, deliver today, and orchestrate ecosystems. Do you put those together in any way in relation to what they're really applying to or focused on?
Yes, because the direction, the purpose, the strategy is the guiding force to create those ecosystems. Remember, what is key is to understand the problem that we are trying to resolve, the direction that we want to take. That comes from the strategy. So absolutely, the orchestrate ecosystem is a way to extend the way we create value as an enterprise.
So act with purpose and courage and harness the power of others. In fact, this came up in our client conversation only yesterday. Tell us why this was identified as one of the critical components of the connecting leader.
Courage and resilience.
Right.
So resilience is something that has been tested during COVID, right? And actually leaders are, if we look at our assessment data, leaders have become better and better at resilience. But courage is the lowest rated energizer of our assessment consistently. And we looked for all times and then for the last 2 years. So how do you find courage? And courage leads to taking smart risks, right? And seizing opportunities. So courage really can be unlocked once you are very, very clear on your professional purpose, on your values. And once you have that foundation, I would say, then really courage is anchored in that purpose. That purpose gives you a line of sight, a direction that makes you a lot more motivated, energized, and bold. And you are really, really willing to fight for what you believe is right in order to achieve that purpose.
Now, it's interesting. I've heard the word courage used by elite sports people, and I'll give you one example. Stevie Ward from London Rhinos talked about the requirement for them to be courageous in being themselves, both on and off the pitch.
Absolutely.
So he talked about the courage of, in quite a masculine and gladiatorial environment, to still be very authentic. Are you seeing any links as well between that ability to be courageous, but also that ability to be highly authentic?
Absolutely. Courage applies to ourselves, to have that courage to look at ourselves in the mirror with the good things that you see and the not so good things that you see. And do you want to do something about it? So it takes courage to look at that mirror. And then how do you process that? That's also important. But courage also can apply to you, can apply also to the team. And the team can be galvanized also with that purpose that we defined earlier. And that will unlock also the courage of the team as well.
Right.
So being yourself, yes. And if you are yourself and if you feel deeply that you are fighting for the right reasons, the right solution, then suddenly the courage unlocks quite more easily.
Tell me a little bit about where self-awareness fits in with this component, because you talked about that looking in the mirror and seeing what you see, and you may not quite like what you see, but help me understand the importance of self-awareness.
So the way I picture it is, in order to find your personal, professional purpose, you have to be self-aware. You cannot, just as a check exercise, just try to find a purpose and this is the one I select. No, you have to really go deep into your own understanding and your own self-awareness. So for me, there is a dependency between self-awareness allows you to really better find your purpose, which allows you then to build courage and resilience.
Okay, understood. Let me come across to harness the power of others. And within this one is something that I've been banging on about for ages, and you and I both share a passion in relation to human-centered leadership. But again, help us understand why harness the power of others came out as one of the critical components of the connecting leader model.
Well, I think we opened with that. Organizations are becoming more human. We need to unlock the fullest potential of all our team members. And also, the expectations of our team members are evolving. So harness the power of others is about empowering team members. It's about, I have a colleague, our colleague TA, who talks about delegated leadership. Maybe she has another word, but the fact that we want the team to be so inclusive, so collaborative.
Yes.
We want to empower our team member to experiment themselves, to learn by themselves and give them the space to do so. And all that creates a team that is more likely to become a high-performance team. All our studies show that in order to, we call it at Heidrick accelerated teams, but high-performance teams, all those components need to be brought together in order to achieve that level of performance.
You and I have spoken before about a term that we hear a lot about, inclusive leadership. So just tell me about your views on that. Where does that sit in all of this?
So it is absolutely part of harness the power of others.
Right.
And for me, this is the mindset of seeking, not accepting, but seeking diversity of thought. Diversity of thought means different experience, different background, different types of people, different geographies. But how can you have a very diversified way to look at problems that you are trying to resolve together? The more lenses you look at the problem with, the more likely you are to resolve the problem effectively. And inclusive for me is seeking that diversity, is inviting the voice of even the people in the team that are maybe shy or timid, but really encouraging that mindset of everybody has a voice. And actually, the more diverse the voice, the better we can work together and resolve problems.
So Regis, the connecting leader model is applicable both to the individual and to groups of people as well. Is that right?
Yes. Originally, we really wanted to look at individual leadership characteristics that will help lead the future of the enterprise. But absolutely, these capabilities that we just mentioned can apply to groups of people, absolutely.
Are you seeing evidence of this being done well? Because a leader may look at these 5 components and think there are certain places and spaces that they are generally good at or resonate with, and others which are work in progress. We're always work in progress. As part and parcel of the work you're doing and the research that you've done, were you seeing really good examples of this being brought to life?
So in all fairness, you see 2, 3, sometimes 4 of the 5 dimensions that are well implemented, rarely all the 5, but that's okay. This connecting leader is intended to identify what are those areas, yes, that we are excellent at, but what are those areas that we need to work on to be future ready. So that's really the way to use this connecting leader model, is to look at it in a way to have some type of diagnostic and what do we want to work on? And those capabilities that we have listed are really the ones that will prepare you for the future as a leader.
Now, Regis, I know how much work has gone into this and how much iteration, and I've been involved in some of those conversations, so thank you. But what's the hope for the connecting leader?
I really think, number one, we have a great response from clients and people we talk to about the connecting leader, and it really resonates with them and it resonates with their aspiration. Second, so the fact that that resonates so well with the market is we want to help organizations elevate their game and become future ready through this model, which seems to work for most.
And that's a critical piece. We're going to come back to it. It's this future readiness piece, isn't it? As opposed to
Absolutely.
historical, what got us here isn't going to get us there. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but that's what this is about, isn't it? It's about future-proofing the skills and capabilities for a world that's ever changing. Again, am I summarizing that okay?
You are spot on.
Okay. Well, that's a first for me. I'll be honest with you. Let me ask you this final question. What's the best piece of leadership advice you've ever given or received?
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's deep. That's deep. I was told, and then I tried to apply it, is let your team members learn at their own pace. That was such an unlocking effect on me and the way I was perceived by my team, to not provide the solution to my team that I thought was the right solution given my experience and expertise, but to let the team members really find their own solutions, and once in a while guiding them. And you know what? Their solution was not the solution I had picked, and it was a better solution. So that was really, really for me the best advice ever.
I've got to ask you another question now, because I've got you here. So give it an inch and I'll take a mile. What's been your biggest aha moment whilst you've been at H&S since you came in? Have you had an aha moment?
You know, I have traveled the world quite a bit. I have shifted organizations quite a bit, and I value so much a corporate culture of empowerment and collaboration. I was in the Middle East for a little while, and culturally that can be different.
Very.
And I had forgotten, I was 5 years in the Middle East, and I had forgotten how freeing that can be to have such a corporate environment compared to the environment I was before. And that motivates me, actually, with the connecting leader and everything we have talked about, to have organizations, unlock the potential of their team members that way.
Well, then let that be the aspiration. Let's have as many conversations with as many people as possible in relation to leaders, leadership, and how does the connecting leader fit into that puzzle as well. Listen, thanks so much, Regis, for taking the time out to chat to me.
Well, thank you for having me, Adam. Thank you.
Take care, Regis. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.